And we are live. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone watching on YouTube, on Twitch. Hello, Steve, Nimrod, Barak, Angela hiding
Hello.
in the
Hey.
background, help us with links and updates and all that good stuff. How's everyone doing today?
All right, we're
Well,
doing
you're
awesome.
you're the one back from bank holiday, so how are you doing?
Very, very well. It has been, for once, a beautiful weekend of weather here in the UK. So we actually got to enjoy the bank holiday in true holiday spirit. So there's been beers and there has been sunshine and there has been goodness. What about you, Steve? You've been off for the long weekend as well.
I have been off, and you're right. I was in a hammock. What's going on? That thing gets used
Nice.
about once a year.
Solid effort.
Yeah, I know. We did barbecue. I did some. One day, I even had like more beer than I should have. Sometimes that happened, but I had to
I don't
celebrate.
believe you. I don't believe
No, you have to trust me.
All
Cheers.
good. Cheers. Well, I
Cheers.
think as usual, welcome by the way, everyone, to Codified Security Office Hours episode 8 by my count. And we've got a bit of a special one today because it's all about our new open source software, Yor. So we're gonna be diving into that. If you don't know what it is, if you've never heard of it before, that is fine. We're gonna do some intros and things, but as is tradition with Codified Security Office Hours, what is everyone drinking today?
Tradition. This is my first one. Shall I go first?
I think you should, Steve. I mean, for those of you that don't
right.
know, Steve actually hosts a YouTube beer podcast. So this is right up your street. I'm expecting detailed information about this beer, Steve.
Okay. This is now. I love the art on it. I'm an art. I like good art on beer.
Oh, that's cool.
Pretty cool, right? It's awesome. It's by Collective Arts, which is from Toronto. It's called Good Monster, and it's a New England double IPA. So I'm taking a lot of risk. It's 8%, considering this is my first office hours. So take it slow.
What have you got there, Nimrod?
Yeah, so this is my first time as well, but I'm going a bit more solid with a soul beer. I think it's a kind of Mexican. And it's a solid 5%, not an 8%, Steve.
Yeah, take risks.
That means you can have two, Nimrod, and you'll be fine. But yes, welcome to your first office hours as well.
Thank you.
Barak, what have you got there?
So Nimrod decided to do a release over the weekend, like every weekend, and I need to recover, so I'm having some whiskey.
From 8% to 40 to 60% there, Steve. I think you've been outdone.
It's not a competition.
I am on a 6.5% IPA from a local Manchester brewery that is about, I don't know, a 10-minute drive from my house, called Pomona Island. So I think I've missed out on a joke. The beer's called I Feel Real Phony When My Name Is Phil. I don't know whether I've missed something in the public domain or whether, like all beers these days, the names just make no sense. But either way, it tastes good.
All right.
Middle of the road, 6.5%. So without further ado, yes, let's jump into some non-beer related content. Just gonna bring my screen up here. Awesome. Those of you that have watched a few of these before will notice we have got kind of shiny new audio visual powers. So there's no more kind of dragging the Zoom window onto the screen share. So, fingers crossed without a hitch. Episode 8. We are going to have a quick look at some community contributions. We'll quickly go around talking about kind of industry news and any tools and articles that everyone on the call has found interesting over the past couple of weeks. If you're watching us and you want to use the chat to also contribute to that section, do let us know what has been exciting you in the industry, in tech. What cool new open source tools have you been kind of geeking out on? Do let us know. And then, then we'll dive into Yor. Steve's got a wonderful intro to Yor that he's recorded specially for us. So we're going to play that out to set the scene. And then we're going to get the lowdown from Barak and Nimrod as to why Yor came into existence, why it was written, what the problems are we're trying to solve. And as usual, we'll save some time at the end for community topics and questions. But this is meant to be a chat and interactive, so if you do have questions, please don't just save them to the end. Post them in the comments section on YouTube or Twitch, and we'll kind of wind our way around those as we go along. Nothing like going a bit off-piste. So with that said, the contributions, I remember when we first started doing these sessions, we'd have a handful of like GitHub members like by name on the screen. Last kind of 30 days, 210 different people contributing to Chekhov. We've had 101 people, including our internal teams, contributing to Yor, which, considering it only went live on GitHub of like a week ago, is pretty insane. So a wider but very, very heartfelt thank you to everyone that helps people out in our Codified Security Slack channels and is always there for kind of new people getting into Chekhov and getting into IaC security. And all the checks and all the contributions, and whether it's a contribution in terms of a closed PR or it's just a contribution in terms of helping someone out on Slack or raising an issue to start a conversation or a docs update, it is all very, very much appreciated. So thank you to everyone. And
Matt, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How long did it take to get to 101 on Chekhov, given you've got that on Yor already? That seems crazy.
I mean, doesn't it? Like, I need to kind of deep dive into this data. Annoyingly, we weren't tracking things as beautifully and kind of software as a service-y as we are nowadays. So I couldn't actually go back and pull out that data. But it is insane, isn't it? That we've had 101 people, be it issues or contributions.
I think it took us 1.5 months or maybe 3 months to get the first 2 contributors. And I think that we have Christoph, who's our first contributor outside of Bridgecrew contributor, contributing to Chekhov on the first day. So that was amazing. And Ismail, who also tested the beta before releasing Chekhov. So on day -10, we had our first outside contributor, which was fun, actually.
Hey, Ismail's here. Hello, welcome. So super secret access there, which I guess is just being in the look at the modern AV going on here is just being involved in the community, and we've got some interesting things in the pipeline that if outside feedback's awesome. So anyone that wants kind of early access or has a use case for these things, we talk about them in Codified Security regularly, and by all means do just shout and we'll get people involved. But yeah, 2 months, that's pretty crazy. And then -10 days. We're clearly moving in the right direction, aren't we? That's what we like to hear. I was just going to comment on this as well. Like, just I know that they don't quite line up, but as a whole, I think as well, like getting to PRs and as an internal team, I think we're getting better at kind of getting to PRs and getting things approved and trying not to leave things lingering in an open state as much, or at least having the discussion in line with the PR. So I'm pretty happy with that graph myself as well. I don't know if anyone else has any comments.
Yeah, happy about it. If you want to cheers again for that,
I'll cheers to that. I'll cheers to discussing and opening PRs. I can do that. I'm just trying to get Nimrod to like get rid of his beer as soon as possible, so he has to go and get another one. Really, I can tell he's running low and he's like nursing it.
Barak has set me up already. Don't worry.
Ah, there you go. He's got backup whiskey. This is dangerous. Obviously, drinks not mandated to be involved in office hours, but highly recommended.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, what have you all been doing outside of Chekhov and outside of Yor? What tools have been on your top of mind? What articles have made you kind of stop and think and go down a completely interesting internet rabbit hole over the past couple of weeks? I'm going to start with Barak.
So I think that I'm going to steal Nimrod's one. We started a discussion this morning about a great article by Martin Fowler, who's working at Aqua Security these days, who have mentioned in an article, I think, over 90 ways to share data between AWS accounts, which is crazy. It's not about making a resource public, which we know there are more than 100 different ways to make resources public in the cloud. But it's actually sharing data between two different AWS accounts. And it might be hard to track because there's not a lot of monitoring tools on top of that. And what Martin is showing is that you have a way to share between databases, to create a trusted role between different accounts, and 80-something ways to do that. So the thing that is interesting there is there are a lot of point solutions to identify and remediate each one of those. And there is actually no policies code engine to help to identify some of those. Because when you're defining cross-account roles, in a lot of times you're doing that for third-party access, so not all the third parties are using infrastructure as code. But it would be interesting to see policies code, policies being created. So it's an invite for people to contribute those to Chekhov. And it would be interesting to see what the industry would make on top of those data sharing scenarios. Let me pull up the article so I can share it. Give me a sec.
Yeah, I'd like to add on that. A, Barak, you're a thief. And B, I think one of the building blocks when we start working with AWS specifically is that the account is its own sandbox. And it's very hard to move things between accounts, which means if we put all production in one AWS account, it'll be segregated and safe. And this shows us over 90 ways where we were wrong. And how wrong were we to just trust in the boundary? It is true that by default, your account is a sandbox, but there are so many ways to hack it and so many ways to change that it's really quite difficult to keep it that way today.
Interesting. Yeah, so almost kind of 90 new ways that kind of blast radius of damage and access actually could be, because we've already seen attacks where like people are using like assumed roles to kind of go through like linked accounts and an organization that uses multiple accounts, but this is almost just like data sharing between not even accounts that you own that you could go and scan to find both ends of that link. It's just completely separate places that data could end up.
Right. And some of them actually pass the data automatically. So you don't have, it's a push and not a pull mechanism. So you can just configure replication or stuff like that. And boom, all your data ends up somewhere else without any action being recorded on CloudTrail, nothing in your IAM permissions, nothing.
Yeah,
Do you have a link to that?
I can share my screen and demonstrate because it has a crazy visualization, and I'll share the link on the private chat so Angela can share it. So it's actually kind of crazy. It's all of the different ways to share data between those different services across multiple accounts and the different issues that you have with it. So there are some good reasons to do it. You need, in some cases, to mix data between accounts. It can be, for example, machine learning oriented account together with the production data account. Or it can be sharing data between security practitioners within the same company, or even having a third-party tool helping you to do some shortcuts on your cloud resources and provisioning. And over here, we are what Matthew is doing is reviewing each and every service, the way to share it, and how to identify it manually, and what's the risk around it. So it's a really good read. It would be very interesting to see how those stuff are going to be solved within our community. So give it a try.
That's very, very cool. I mean, not cool in a good way, but yeah, very, very interesting nonetheless. Yeah, I'm just trying to think, like, how would you even let's do that thing you shouldn't do and like engineer and product design live on a live on a meeting. Like, how would you even start trying to work out whether an object was exhibiting one of those, you know, if you only have access to one side of that kind of pairing, what could you do about that? Like, are the indicators all there or not?
So maybe Nimrod would elaborate more than me, but I think there are two ways to do that. On the runtime side, you can scan each and every of those resources and just check, hey, do I have cross-account roles? Do I have IAM roles with trusted entities between different roles? On build time, it really depends whether you have defined that in your Terraform, CloudFormation, or any kind of other manifests. And if you're scanning that repository. If you are, you can create Jacob or OPA or different kind of policies, code policy, and say, hey, IAM policies should really not have another trusted AWS account that is not within a subset of lists that I know about.
These are my organization's trusted. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and maybe a question to Nimrod. There must be a way to do some of those stuff around using the graph queries of Chekhov, right?
Right. So I'm guessing this is something that will be in an IAM policy of sorts, like the bucket policy or the CloudWatch logs policy or stuff like that. And you can do text search on specific attributes, but you'll still have to know the correct attribute for each, I would say, service or resource. So it will be still a lot of nitpicking and fine tuning to get it right.
Right. So something like 300 lines of query, of a graph query within Chekhov to get, show me all of the resources that are shared between two different accounts using an IAM policy. Crazy.
Still, food for thought for the next
Absolutely.
demo hour.
New startup idea.
Yeah.
Like it. What about you, Steve? What's been keeping you technically interested past couple of weeks?
Oh, a bunch of stuff. I mean, the CNCF released their software supply chain best practice white paper document. I don't know, when does it become a white paper versus a document, right? It's 44 pages of good ideas in terms of, off the back, of course, of a certain very high profile supply chain attack that occurred earlier this year and was in the news every week since. But just talking about the different elements that we need to secure, and like some of the key messaging that they're talking about it is just the fact that all environments within the supply chain should be clearly defined. So they're not saying infrastructure as code would be a good idea, but that's in fact kind of what they're saying. But they're starting right at the very beginning and going all the way to the end to try and give people at least something written down that indicates what is best practice in this space all the way from the very beginning. So I think it's a great start because this year has been fairly front and center in terms of supply chain. I can actually put a link. I'll put a link to the PDF in the comments because it's not like you got to pass through some kind of barrier to go get it and download it and give it a read, right? It's free stuff. Free stuff that makes you more secure is always good things.
It certainly is.
And then the other thing, which I thought I poured over, and it's a slightly different perspective, and I guess maybe I'll share, right? Because it was an article written by, and don't say that I'm sharing somebody else's awesome idea here, but it was I can't see my own screen. There it is. Boom. It was this. It was Team TNT. It was a breakdown of Team TNT targeting Kubernetes, but it's written by Magno Logan, who does like a ton of stuff within CNCF in terms of tag security. He ran some of the Twitch channel feeds during KubeCon. Really cool guy. He looks a bit like Jack Black, actually. And it just goes through all of the different touch points from Team TNT. But if you really want to geek out, he goes step by step how the Kubernetes cluster was compromised and how it went beyond cryptojacking to an IRC bot to compromising the kubelet all the way down to the control plane nodes. Like it's detailed enough that you can get kind of right into it and get a real feel for what you can do wrong, a lot of what you can do wrong out of the box in terms of that sort of configuration. So I really liked that guy. And I like that article.
That's awesome. And like, yeah, Kubernetes is like in the way it's so API driven and so consistent in those APIs across kind of every deployment is almost like a worm writer's dream, right? If you find one, you can then spin up pods that carry on trying to find other ones, and you don't have to rewrite it for different environments. It's just one deployment.
You got it.
Very, very cool. Oh, I'll give that a read. I must have missed that. Yeah, very cool. I've spent a lot of time thinking about like just kind of still noodling on the security day from KubeCon on the Monday before KubeCon EU, and just how kind of every single piece of content I've seen since, and I don't know whether it's because people realized how well the KubeCon went, but every kind of piece of security content I've seen since that I've like really kind of soaked in has been that like live hacking, like capture the flag style learning by doing kind of scenario. And you know, like a bit of part-time pen testing anyway, so maybe it's just me, but I do think that, you know, that style of, especially with security, like almost look how easy it is, anyone can do it with a little bit of guidance, you really should start taking this seriously, and kind of here's then how we fix it is a really interesting way of kind of getting that message out there and getting more people into watching that style of content. So yeah, I've just been noodling around with those ideas. But yeah, I haven't written those down. So I have no Medium article to share with you at all, I'm afraid.
You can go to YouTube if you want to see an example of what Matt's talking about, and go just if you look at Raw Code, who runs a Kubernetes kind of cluster destruction YouTube channel. He got actually Andy Martin, who designed the Capture the Flag, who everybody had to break into, came on his show, and normally he challenges other people, but Andy challenged him to try to go through and fix all of the challenges in the Capture the Flag, and he's quite good at this stuff, and he struggled, and it's a really good 1 hour of your time if you can go on YouTube. Fact, I'll put a link. Oh, you're gonna put a link?
That direct, yeah, that exact one. Let me put it in there because it was awesome.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, we like his Kubernetes content. Could I share my screen, please? Because I think it is probably time we introduce our very special guest for the session, which is our new open source code base for automated tagging of infrastructure as code. And instead of trying to talk this through, like instead of going, hey, let's read the docs together because they're docs, like you can do that yourselves if you want to double down on this. So instead, Steve's done a wonderful introduction to Yor, getting started with it, what it is and what it does. So let's just roll that.
All right. Hi there, my name's Steve Jaguar, and in this video, I'm going to be introducing you to an awesome new open source project by Bridgecrew called Yor. Let's go. Yes, you did hear me correctly. It is called Yor, spelled Y-O-R. I'm called Steve Jaguar. I am a developer advocate for Bridgecrew. Now, if you're wondering what Yor does, we can take a real quick look at it here. Automated infrastructure as code, tag, and trace. What does that mean? Well, in slightly more words, automatically tags infrastructure as code resources with ownership details, unique code cloud IDs, and custom tags for traceability and auditability. Now, what does that mean for you? It does mean that if you are looking to trace resources that are misconfigured or showing anomalous behavior for whatever reason from runtime in AWS, for example, back to an original commit, this can be enabled with Yor. But there are a lot of reasons why you would want to be tagging resources in infrastructure as code. It could be for cost reasons. It could be for access control. There's a lot of reasons why, and all of the different cloud platforms have their best practice documents showing how you can do that. So let's take a closer look again, and let's switch over to the GitHub repo so we can see where we might start. Now, what I like about the first line here is Yor is an open source tool that helps add informative and consistent tags. Now that might answer the second question you may have, which would be, I already tagged my resources. How is this any better? How is it different? Consistent is the word that I'd like to emphasize there. Ensuring that you have consistent tagging or strategic tagging even means that you can use that tagging and know what you're looking for further down the line at runtime. In fact, not only does it enable tracing back to commit, it can also enrich policy engines for security. So once we know what we're looking for, we can make better things happen. Now, how do I do that in an automated sense? Well, let's get started. Now, I could use this as a GitHub action, but I think I'm going to do that in another video. What I'm going to do is, when I'm testing things out locally, I just like to run them on my own computer, and that's what I'm going to do. So if I roll down here, I can see that to install this, I need to run brew tap Bridgecrew out. So that's easy enough. I have my VS Code open right here. I've even got some Terraform ready and waiting, loaded. So let's do that. I assume that'll only take a second. So let's just go back and grab this next command so we can install Yor. Yeah, it's already done. That's nice. Fantastic. So you can see I've got loaded up here some of the TerraGoat project, essentially, which was intentionally misconfigured Terraform, also made by Bridgecrew. I have been running the checkoff plugin. You can see the results there, and I'm ready to tag this up with Yor and run my Terraform apply. So while that's building, let's go back over here and see what I can do once it's installed. All right, well, it looks pretty straightforward. I don't need to initialize anything. I could just run Yor tag, specify the directory, and I've got some tagging. Okay. I'm curious about what tags I'm going to be applying. It looks like I can create my own tags with Yor simple tags, and I've done that already. I'd also like to list the tags. There appears to be a concept of tag groups, and it looks like, yeah, I would expect to be able to skip certain tags or skip certain directories. So it seems pretty straightforward out of the box. So what I'll do right away is list the tags that are available, and I should be able to hopefully see the tag groups. So I've come back here. I'm all good. Let's clear that out so I can get a better look. I'm going to run Yor. Let's just do list tags and see what we got going on. Okay. So I've got tags that are extracted from Git, so the organization, repo file, commit, etc. I've got the simple tag I set up using an environment variable, specifying my cost center, which I think is important. And I've got the Yor trace. Now I'll show you what Yor trace is in just a moment, but I think I'm ready to tag my resources. So let's give that a shot. I'm just going to type Yor tag. I saw earlier that -d was the short form for -- directory, and I'm lazy. So I'm just going to do -d dot. That's probably the shortest command I can do. Well, that was quick. There we go. You see that changed in VS Code. And below here, I can see all the tags that were applied. So let me just quickly roll up and take a look at the output. Now it's worth noting that I saw I can have my output in JSON, but I left it in the default console. I can see all the different resources. I can see the files within which they are contained and all the tags that were applied. Okay. That's just a big list of what it did, which is great. In this specific case, I can look at one instance here in my S3 bucket. and I can see the tags I already had are there. I can see the name, the environment, but I can see the new one. I can see the cost center now is set to Bridgecrew, BC. I can also see git commit, the file name, last committed, last modified. Yeah, okay, this looks pretty good. And there's my Yor trace. Now, if you're wondering what Yor trace, I haven't quite explained that yet. Although I do have the commit ID here, and I could trace back to the commit, this might not be the only thing that was part of that commit. What I'd like to know is what is the exact resource within the commit, and that's what Yor trace does for me. It gives me that additional granularity that I need. So I quite like that that's there, and we're going to show how easy that is to use in a moment. Okay, so this all looks good, and we can actually see that all these files were modified over here. What I might do now is I might just run a, if I can spell terraform apply, and away we go. But I've already done that to save time. I didn't save too much time. My spelling was atrocious there. So we're going to come back over here. We're going to jump straight to the AWS Management Console. And there's a few different ways I can look at this. There's 100 different ways probably. I could go to the resource groups tag editor, but I'm going to go to config. And I am going to look for, I think, non-compliant resources, because I'm pretty sure I've got some non-compliant resources in there. Probably mostly. All right, 36 non-compliant resources. It's going to pull up all of them, but I'm going to narrow this down to EC2 instances. There we go. Try and be a little bit more precise. And I'm just going to grab the first one. Okay. So let me roll this back down and take a look at its tags just down here. And you can see all of those familiar tags are there now, which is great. I've got the git commit, which is what I want. I can see the people who are involved. I can see the project. Very good. Now what I'm going to do at first is I'm going to grab this git commit. And now I'm going to go to my repo. And I'm immediately going to see how I can search this repo for this particular commit. And I can see all the files that were involved in this commit. Okay, well, for good reason, I want to have Yor trace now, because this is more information that I really want. Maybe there's more than one S3 bucket. Maybe there's more than one EC2 instance, etc. Let's go back to our console and let's grab our unique Yor trace. And that should give us a slightly narrower result. Okay, there we go. Now we have exactly what we expected, an EC2 instance. And we have traced it all the way back to the particular commit and file. Right here on line 30, I can see it all matching up. So this is just one quick example of what we could do with Yor to enable an automated tag and trace of our infrastructure as code. Hope you enjoyed this introductory video. Once again, my name's Steve Jaguar. I'm a developer advocate. Sign up to the YouTube channel, watch more of our videos. We've got a whole lot more coming. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Steve. One that, and I know this won't quite translate to all audiences, but once that if you grew up in the UK and you watched Blue Peter, one that you made earlier.
And I did not grow up in the UK, and yet I still got that in there.
Oh, well, there we go. Very, very happy that you got that reference. So jumping kind of straight on from like that kind of what Yor is, what it tries to help. And I absolutely loved, by the way, that you highlighted like, well, we already know what the git commit is there. Why do we need a trace? And it gets you directly to that, by Yor being, understanding of what makes an individual Terraform object or an individual CloudFormation object. We have that ability to say categorically, this is like a serial number for exactly where in my Git repo that this object was created, is super cool. But to give us kind of more information on why that came about and some of the problems that customers and people we'd been talking to were facing to create Yor in the first place. Barak, do you want to kind of give us an overview of the thought processes and the kind of how and why of Yor?
Yeah, so it was an interesting, it is an interesting story. It was at least interesting to me when I'm telling it to myself. We had more than 300 different conversations with practitioners that are using Chekhov's and other tools like OPA and other policies engines tools in their pipeline. And we asked them, what is the most common policy that you're customizing for your own org? And their answer was, if the cluster is untagged, if the S3 bucket is untagged, if the EC2 is untagged, drop the build. Don't let it pass. Don't let anyone to provision a resource that is untagged. And then we asked, all right, that seems a little harsh. It's not like it's public, or it's not like it's unencrypted. It's just untagged. What's the big deal? And it told us that on scale, it's really hard to govern resources that you cannot track who provisioned them, from what source, when, from what repository. And it all tracked down back to a set of best practices that people wanted to have on top of their cloud infrastructure in order to govern those resources. And actually, as we scaled internally our own engineering org, we started to follow the same practices. We have several engineering teams, and we wanted to have operational system in production and in a distributed manner, meaning each team owns their own set of microservices. If there is a PagerDuty alert, they should be the one to respond to it and not another team. And we try to follow a set of best practices. Let me share my screen really quick. Give me a sec. And actually, there is a beautiful, well, a very long document by Azure with a set of minimum suggested tags. Let me make it slightly larger. Focusing here. And things like you should have a name to your workload, which will resemble what the application is actually doing. You should say if it's business critical, if it's public asset or private asset or confidential one, what's the business unit, who's the operations team, etc. And then a set of process-related tags, like who approved to provision that, what's the allocated budget. It really helps to scale up your engineering org if you are making those decisions very early on before provisioning those clusters to production. But the thing that it caused us to do an endless pull request. We started commenting to each other, hey, you really forgot the tag when you added this resource to your Terraform code. You really forgot this tag when you edited your CloudFormation or serverless resource. And it will be hard for us as a team to collaborate if you're not having those tags persistent. And then there is a similar doc for AWS and a similar for GCP. And we decided to create a tool that will solve that issue. So we did the first thing that anyone would do. We started to think of a name. We went into Rotten Tomato and we looked for something with 17 on Discord, and we decided that Yor must be a good name for it. Just kidding. So Yor is a character. He is a time traveling warrior from a 1983 movie, and Yor is trying to help with both tagging, automated tagging, and with tracking between cloud resources and code. And one of the best practices, if you're following the Terraform best practices, is actually to backtrace. And here is a beautiful issue by Michael. Thank you, Michael. He just sent it over to me 10 minutes before this session. And there is a great Slack channel called Hangops. You should all join for DevOps engineers. And he suggested a way to backtrace where was the resource provisioned from, using a set of tags that will be added to each and every module. And we took Michael's idea and some other smart guys' idea, and we created a tool outside of it, which was Yor, that is actually adding this backtrace, this Yor trace that Steve have demonstrated, and a set of best practices tiered out of the Azure best practices, AWS best practices, and GCP, of having an owner. And how would you automatically know about an owner? Use the Git log. everything should exist on Git. And if someone have committed a change to a resource, he's probably one of those owners, or know who should be the owner at least. So in general, there are 6 use cases to Yor. The first one is having order on your cloud inventory. Just organize your console by environment, by theme, by owner, by cost, and Yor will help you do that. The second one is access control. You can define very strict IAM policies using those tags. For example, if you have team tag, you can say, hey, Nimrod's team, it's the security engineering team within Bridgecrew, is the only one that is allowed to edit CloudTrail, because that's the audit of our security system. Security risk management, to define which resources has sensitive data, which are confidential and which are public. Cost allocation, define a cost center that those resources belong to. Operation support, obviously the owner is what will come there. You know who to blame or who to approach when something good happens or bad one. And automation, you can use tags to opt in and opt out from automation processes. For example, if it's a dev machine, opt in into a process that will shut down on off hours, because if the engineer is not working, the dev machine can be shut down and you can save some money. So Yor is helping to solve a lot of use cases, I hope, but at least internally it does.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. And Steve, Nimrod, do you have anything to add there? People, by all means, give us a shout on the comments or questions, and we can kind of dive into those as they come in.
Yeah, so I totally agree with Barak. I was the one on the other end that was fixing the pull requests with the tags. And I think I shared with Barak the hate for repetitive tasks. So it was almost too natural to do this tool. And I think it still has a lot more to grow. The tags today help to find your way around your cloud, but I think it has a lot of potential, and we'll talk about it in a bit. I'm hoping.
Yeah, sounds
So
good.
who's the natural beneficiary of the result of Yor? Because the first thing that came to me was SRE, but now I'm thinking, when you mentioned cost center, I'm thinking, well, obviously security in terms of creating, using it as an enrichment engine for policy. But if we're talking about developers, how do we get developers to say, yay, I want this. I love it when people track my mistakes back to me.
Yeah, I actually think the biggest benefactor is the DevOps team lead, since nobody needs to ask him, hey, where did this come from? It's written on every resource. So of course it helps everybody shorten the circuits and get answers fast. But I think the most beneficial from this is the dev team, which doesn't need to be asked around and hassled and all the context switches to find out some weird EC2 that someone forgot and never tagged.
So I think that, Steve, you asked a question that, like, you ask a question in a room with 4 people who talk about DevOps, and each one will have a different opinion. Mine is actually that the individual developer is the one that would benefit the most. You are right that if the developer have done an issue, you can track it back to him. But the thing is, when you're developing in the cloud, you're having a lot of cloud native services and a lot of microservices. And actually, there is a lot of tribal knowledge when you're developing within a large enterprise. And let's say that you have an authentication service and a billing service, and they've existed for a decade. And you want to know, why do you have this 403 error, or why it's not answering your calls? Who are you going to call? It's not Ghostbusters. It's going to be the Yor tagged resource and the tagged owner.
We should make that a song or something.
I don't think we can fit the syllables of Yor tagged resource into Ghostbusters, but if we could, who are you gonna call? Yor tagged resource. I interestingly, Steve, there was one colleague I used to work with that I actually ran kind of an early version of Yor past, and they said something very similar. They were like, as a developer, like, I don't care about tags. I get kind of tags and other kind of security requirements kind of pushed onto me, and yes, Yor will massively help me just kind of tick that box and move on. But it's not something I personally care about. And then we kind of got talking, and we got talking about their role in the team, and then whether it was kind of a DevOps team or a traditional kind of just devs, and then another team's doing the deployments. And he ran it past the people doing the kind of operational side of that team, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is really useful." So it is quite interesting to see like those personas do slightly still exist. You know, we not everyone is living in a perfectly DevOpsy world.
Yeah, if I add my own, like, I answer my own question in a way. Like, coming from a background of, well, say if I go early days on security tooling like static analysis, and we all know what Git blame is. There's always been this kind of built-in ability in the application security domain for attribution. It's been actually kind of easy. But as soon as we expanded and we blurred that line between AppSec and InfoSec, and which is what Kubernetes and microservices and containerization has done, that just kind of went away. And it's been a struggle since. So this is why I'm really quite excited about the idea that this can be integrated into CI, and every resource has a unique ID, and then it all goes off into the wonderful land of runtime. And suddenly we can draw that line. We can create these sort of the larger feedback loops that bring it back to the source, so that it can be fixed quickly. And as much as developers might protest, you know, kind of in a sort of childlike way, they actually probably quite like the idea that things can be fixed quicker. You know, in the long run, they realize the benefits of it. So it's quite cool that this is an engine that enables something that has been sought after for quite a long time.
I'm going to go even deeper and a little bit like soft skills and meta there. Like, that, to your point, like, I've seen it myself, like, and I've been this person myself in other companies and other teams, where if I'm protesting about someone giving my code or my actions in an environment more visibility and more attribution, then it's probably not that I actually hate the idea of the tool. It's probably that I'm working in a culture where individuals are getting blamed for making mistakes, rather than a culture which accepts that it's better to find that mistake and fix it. And everyone makes mistakes, from, you know, mechanics to software developers to pilots and all that. Like, it's probably a cultural thing that actually, you know, they're not in an environment where they feel safe to make mistakes, which is kind of pretty bad for security anyway, regardless of what's happening.
Wow. The fourth ideal of DevOps.
There you go.
Safety.
There you go. Like, no, just something you said there was like, sent me back to a very dark time, very, very many years ago. And I went, oh yeah, I used to hate things being attributed to me as well. Like, what's this Git thing, and how dare they have a blame command? And I'm not using that. I'm just gonna keep storing things on a Windows SMB drive.
Yeah, like everybody, I'm sure that everybody in this room has got production down at least once or 10 times.
A week.
Yeah. So the thing about Yor is, like, everybody fucks up. You don't have a lot you can do about it. And you need help. You need help to maintain. We internally have more than 150 microservices, 150 lambdas, and the engineering team is not 150 people, which makes it hard. And if you fuck up in this chain of dependencies of resources, it's not about Git blaming you. I think that the word blame is very loaded, and the fact that we're using Git blame is hard, but we're not blaming anyone. We're just trying to help faster, because we all have the same mission. Our mission is to produce a good product and to have a sustainable, good service to our customers. And Yor should help you do that.
Yeah, love it. It was a beautiful summary, I think, there, Barak, to bring us to the end of that section. Talking tech, talking open source, and talking business culture. There you go. You get everything in this office hours. Nimrod, do you want to kind of deep dive us into, for those watching that are interested in, okay, well, this is cool, but I don't just want to use it. I want to customize it. I have my own wildly crazy ideas about things that I want to add as tags. Do you want to take us into a bit of a deep dive into Yor and how that's possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me share my screen right here. Awesome. Great. Let me just enlarge it a bit. I don't know how I do that. Okay. I hope you guys see this. Yeah, there we go. All right. So when we're talking about Yor has only 3 commands today. 2 are more descriptive to get you kind of to understand what Yor does. And then the simplest command is tag. And if we'll go into it, just a sec. There we go, tag directory. So what we did is basically we're just listing the files here. Then we were iterating through the parsers, and for each one, just tagging that file. So we're kind of separated the duties between whatever framework that file is, whether it's CloudFormation, serverless framework, Terraform, and more coming. Each one of them has a go with the file, and if one of them tags the file, then we're good. And then for each framework, we also created support for the structure of that framework. So you'll see, for example, here on the left, let's see if I can't enlarge that. I'm sorry. You'll see the Terraform package here, which has its own structure. Same will be for serverless and CloudFormation. So for each one of them, it grabs the files, parses them, and creates a generic block where all the tagging, all the magic happens. So you'll see the tagging is right here in the common. And today we have 4 basic taggers. All right, so the simplest one is called the simple tag. Steve mentioned it in his video, but I'll talk about it a bit more. Basically, it grabs key value pairs from your environment and just tags all the resources with that tag. So let's say you want to tag everything as, I don't know, we're at Bridgecrew, tag everything as Bridgecrew, so we'll know which resources are not part of the company. You can just leverage that. If you want to, for example, tag the environment, whether it's production or not, and you can just put it in the end, and boom, you've got that tag all across the deployed resources. The second one is the git tags, which Steve already talked about at the code to cloud. And then the final, and I would say the most interesting piece to date, is the external tag group. The external tag group basically allows you to define whichever set of rules you'd like to create on top of your files and infrastructure as code, and to have specific tags based on it. So I'll just show the config because it's much more readable than Go. This is an example configuration of one custom tag. Let's say I want to add an ownership tag.
Can you make it slightly larger?
Yeah, of course. Hold on.
You're the man. Thanks.
Yeah, it works a lot better in Sublime than in Goland. Anyway, so let's say I want to create an ownership group, and the ownership group has a single tag, but it actually supports multiple tags. And the tag will be team. Now, the value is by default. If I don't know who owns it, I'll just tag engineering and let the engineers fight it out. But I know that if the git modifiers is me, for example, I'd like the tag to be second. And if the git modifiers is Matt, I'd like it to be awesome. All right. So it's a pretty simple.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was wondering if I should go positive or negative. I'm glad I chose positive.
I'm okay with it.
You just should know that Steve has the control for this session, so you should add him to the awesome list before
before he kicks you out.
Hold on. There you go. I don't know if you have them, but now you'll be tagged as awesome.
So that's basically looking at that's looking at other tags and using other tags to override customizations.
Right. So you can also write custom Go tags, but I think this is a lot easier and much faster to do. And let's see how it works. So I also have a preloaded Terragoat. It's right here. Git status, nothing here. So I'll just run your tag -d dot and config file. Yeah, and then custom. There you go. So it now tags Terragoat, but it also adds my custom tag. I'm actually, it should be good. You'll see my computer is a bit slower than Steve's, but that's life, I'm guessing.
Newer joiner, newer laptop, right? That's how it works.
There we go. Yeah, exactly. So let's review the results. Is that big enough, Barak?
I'm the only one with glasses here, right?
I've got it full screen and it's coming out okay, but people in a window might be struggling.
Yeah, I think this is the largest I can get it without.
It was great.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So you'll see that for each resource, it actually tags the theme. So you'll see a lot of second tags here, but also check this out. Engineering. I don't know who wrote this, but it's not me. Let's see if I get any awesome. Nope. Sorry, guys.
I think there was one awesome just further up on the first part of the screen.
Let's see. There we go.
There we go. The Neptune cluster.
Yeah,
Very
you
cool.
like Neptune, I'm guessing.
It's
it's
my favorite of all the planets.
Exactly. So this will actually allow you to build logic on top of Yor's pre-existing packaged logic and even get you one step further down the tagging rabbit hole. That's it, guys.
Cool. That's super cool. And then like the simple configuration file for that you just showed kind of reminds me a little bit of like configuration for like a Kubernetes CNI plugin, where it's almost like so simplistic they're just calling a binary that it expects to spit out like a minimal set of statements like that. So you could easily have, a really simple piece of Bash or Python or something in your CI/CD effectively creating that customization from, other variables, other secrets, like other API calls. Like instead of having to like customize Yor by writing your own parser in Golang, like that functionality basically allows you to use any language you want, right, to build your own custom tagging on top of it.
Right. I think it allows non-Go users to be able to customize a Go library.
That's super cool. Super cool. Yeah, that's and especially from kind of a lot of Chekhov users coming from Python, I'm sure that will be really appreciated. But Yor will then take care of knowing what's already been tagged, not touching a tag if it's not changed, kind of all of that logic. You're still, you get the benefits of Yor doing all that for you.
Exactly. In the output, you might have remembered that you see a line per resource. It's not that the other tags were not tagged. It's already tagged. It's just adding that tag on top of what you have.
Tags. Yeah. I think it's probably worth mentioning for people, because I asked this question when we were first playing with Yor. I think it's worth mentioning for people that kind of haven't touched Yor before. And we can kind of show it in a CI/CD example just to close out. But like if you run Yor a second time, even though Yor has tagged and effectively made changes by submitting those tags into your Git repo, Yor then is clever enough to know that the user you're running Yor as isn't then the last person to make modifications. It knows which tags you're added and will kind of ignore those, so you can run it repeatedly and you'll get the same results of the real user who really made an edit to the file, rather than, oh, Yor has edited all the files. So yeah, some cool logic going on somewhere in that code base.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Matt, you kind of, I think you just stitched yourself up to demonstrate something. It sounded like you said.
I think I did, didn't I? Go on, we'll give this a try. So I just wanted, I'm in the middle of recording a little bit of a follow-up to Steve's intro for GitHub Actions users, and kind of showing how Yor can really easily be implemented in CI/CD, just so that, we can do everything we were just showing, but automatically as part of your pipeline. And so if I quickly share my screen, you'll see the documentation for this is actually already on Yor.io. So if you go into installing Yor, it's actually one of the first items here, and it gives us a sample snippet for integrating with GitHub Actions. And so what we can do here is I have got my own fork of TerraGoat, which I have checked out into VS Code. And at this point, I'm on a new branch called add Yor CI. And what we can do is we can take that snippet, like completely unchanged, and put it in a brand new GitHub workflow, which is literally like on any push or on any pull request on any branch, let's just run this so we can see the tagging in action. So if we save that as a configuration, and then we add that to our stage changes, add Yor tagging, and we push this branch. And I want to send it to my fork. And then once that's done, we should be able to head straight over here. And we see that we've got a new branch with add Yor CI, and we should now see that in here on add Yor CI, we have this new Yor job that's going to run on any PR or any fork or anything like that. And all this is going to do is exactly what you just saw kind of Nimrod and Steve do earlier, but it just shows that it's really easy to just take that snippet from the docs and integrate this with GitHub Actions directly. So you can use with for the Yor action to configure flags, and maybe you do want to pull that customization and things like that, or maybe you want to specify which Yor taggers are being used. Maybe you do or don't want the Git tagger by default. But what we'll see here is this is going to go and get our Yor action. It's going to run that, and what we're going to see is Yor then runs, and just as the output didn't really fit in any of the other windows, it doesn't fit in the GitHub Actions output. But then the difference is we're using another GitHub Actions plugin to then actually commit those back for you to whatever branch or whatever pull request you're in. So what we will now see in that branch by running that CI is, I don't know why I didn't just click on that. Let's click on that. What we will see is we are now 2 commits ahead, not just 1 commit ahead. We can see that GitHub Actions itself has updated. In fact, let's just go and have a look at the commit itself. There we go. So GitHub Actions has stepped in, update tags by Yor, and you can see that all of those tags are now automatically placed in here, which repo, which org, who was the last person to edit it, and things like that. So yeah, just an example there. And all these will stay the same apart from objects that change. If I was to go and change, for example, I don't know, like s3.tf, and if I was to mess around or add a new item here, I'd push that, and obviously Yor would leave all the existing tags the same because nothing else has changed, but it's aware that there's either a new or a changed Terraform resource. So that, in a nutshell, is how you can add this to your CI/CD pipeline.
So if I'm super keen, Matt, and I've got Yor on my desktop, and I did like the version I did, say I did the version I did, but then I didn't realize we already put it into CI. So I'm committing tag things, but then it shows up and now you're going to run. Doesn't matter. We're all good. It's not like I'm going to, somehow that's going to mess things up.
Correct. Yeah, you can run Yor repeatedly against the same content, and it won't change things that haven't changed. So Yor, as I was kind of mentioning earlier to Nimrod, like it knows what it created as Yor, and yeah, if a change has happened on a commit, like that will get changed. But everything else, you should be able to run it repeatedly, either from your desktop just by mashing the Yor command repeatedly until you prove that to yourself, or split between desktop and CI. That should be fine.
Yeah, just wanted to point out that we've actually added the commit to the latest action version, so you don't need the extra commit step. You can just add the yours, and by default, it commits all the changes.
Ooh, let's give that a try then, shall we? Shall we do
yeah.
live demos?
Oh man,
no.
the God of demos are crazy today.
Matt,
Yeah, we've
everything
been
works.
pushing it.
Don't do it! Don't do it!
Oh, should I do it or should I not? Should I just remove that last step, or should we
No, you're doing it.
save that for another time?
You got to do it now. You want me to
Okay.
put your screen back up?
Yeah, go on then. So I've just removed that last section down here, and I've added that, and
You want to make a change to a Terraform or something, so the tag will actually change?
yeah, that's a good point. Let's
Just
create
turn the true to false or something.
I'm gonna pick something that isn't at the top of a file. I'm feeling dangerous. Let's go for like EC2 or something. Let's say there we go. I want to spend more, so we're gonna make that medium. And so let's add that. What have we got? We've got the Yor. We've got update Yor CI and change instance. Cannot type. There we go. Let's push that change. I swear if I use VS Code anymore, I'm just going to forget real Git commands.
I've already forgotten them. But
The only time I remember them is when I find myself deep in reflog, when I know I've made a mistake somewhere. There we go. Let's have a look at this. Okay, so yeah, let's have a look.
I think the action didn't finish yet. You want to check the action?
Have a look what's going on. Not quite sure why that's I probably didn't pull before I pushed that change, did I? So it's probably merged it for me. Let's have a look what is in there. In fact, let me just very quickly check. The joys of demos. Let me just very quickly check what is in that latest. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it just merged because I hadn't pulled the tags from this kit before I then made these changes, so that's fine. And let's have a look at this action. Here we go.
Boom.
Yep, and it did it. And what's really interesting, here we go, run your action.
I skipped to the bottom, I think. There we go.
And we updated some resources with my name, I should imagine. Let's have a look. There we
Here
go.
you are.
Lovely.
Oh my God, the God of demos are
I mean,
working today.
but do you know what's interesting, actually? Like, it's interesting you mentioned that, Nimrod, because if we go and look at a previous GitHub action, add your tagging. I was wondering why the output from the commit tag changes was there's nothing to commit. So actually, this was the separate section. So Yor had already done the commit on behalf of itself, and then there was actually nothing for that extra plugin to do. So that makes sense.
So you could have just showed that.
I could have showed that. But
You wanted to push it.
okay. I wanted to give it a try before I accidentally cause anyone else on this call to do any more live demos accidentally. I think that would be a wonderful time to wrap up, gentlemen, unless anyone has any last comments or questions.
Sounds great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to everyone that has joined us. Thank you, Barak, Steve, Nimrod, for joining in. Nimrod, I hope you enjoyed your first, and Steve, your first office hours. Thank you to Angela.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you to Angela in the background for all the links and the help and the magic behind the scenes. And we will see you all next time. Thanks, everyone.